Welcome to the Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy, the free podcast for motivated teachers and school leaders who want to inspire their students and school community in literacy learning. Make sure you subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast player, and for more amazing literacy resources, check out the show notes provided with every episode.
Hi, I'm Sharon, and I'm the host of a Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy. In every Toolkit episode, we bring you specific resources, tools, strategies, tips, techniques to help you in your job as a teacher of literacy. Firstly, we acknowledge and pay our respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we gather on. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of the Kaurna people to country, and we respect and value their past, present, and ongoing connection to the land and cultural beliefs. Hello everybody, great to be here.
And welcome everyone to the podcast. In every Toolkit episode, we bring you specific resources, tools, strategies, tips, techniques to help you in your job as a teacher of literacy. And first and foremost, we acknowledge and pay our respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we gather on. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of the Kaurna people to country, and we respect and value their past, present, and ongoing connection to the land and cultural beliefs. And our podcast, it's all about helping you develop as a professional, where you make the choices that affect you in your classroom for the betterment of your students. And we hope to open some doors again for you today to help you make those choices. It's about using the fullness of the Australian curriculum. Great teaching can never be packaged into a program, we believe. Quality children's literature surrounds our students, but is also central to our teaching. Reader-writer actions and entry points for every child. What do we mean by that? So there are reader and writer actions happening every day, modelled in mini lessons, and then played out in independent reading or writing. And in doing that, with the great children's literature we're using, we have an entry point for every child. Sharon, there is a online workshop coming up in July, on the 5th and 6th of July.
Yes. And
it's at 10 o'clock Adelaide time on both days. And both workshops are linked. So you go online to one of them, and then the following one, the next day, you go even deeper in what you're doing. It's called Reading Like a Writer. And we hope to take people on a journey of using great children's literature and as great models for writing. Do you want to talk a little bit about it, Sharon?
I don't know. I haven't had a word in yet.
True.
This is great.
Oh, okay. You've been having a coffee, haven't you? And just, not that you drink coffee, but you've just been relaxing there. And
yes, sitting back. Mate, you're doing all the work. It's all happening.
Daydreaming.
No, I'm very excited about the two workshops coming up. We know we've called it Reading Like a Writer because we've actually run two podcasts around that topic that we have, or that phrase that we've borrowed from Frank Smith, who talked about the power of, through surrounding students with literature, that we can really only write as well as the literature we're surrounded by. So these workshops will really focus on the use of literature in being able to absolutely strengthen our students in their in all aspects of writing. We'll focus quite a bit on writer's craft and those elements that can really elevate writing from ordinary to literary. And on the Australian curriculum, we talk about the types of writing that students should be engaged in, from creating literary texts through to imaginative, informative, persuasive types of texts. So the two workshops, hour and a half each, will really give us a chance to explore that framework that we talk about, the Reading Like a Writer framework, and then we're going to be involved. Those of you that come and join us, because you're going to be writers involved in that framework and in that, you too being involved in the Reading Like a Writer process, so that you can reflect, so experience it, reflect on it, and think about how you can bring that in stronger ways to your students and elevate their writing.
Yes, and we really feel like these online workshops will be just going that bit further than our podcast, so that you can actually see things demonstrated. There'll a bit of question and answer depending on there's how many are online, but
there'll be chat room open anyway, so that people can be asking questions along the way. And of course, having the second day will let us, have a go at some things on that first day, and then deepen that further on that second day.
And we'll certainly, answer any questions any days later with on the Toolkit Facebook group.
Yes.
Anyone can ask a question if they weren't sure of something.
Exactly.
We just hope that's going to be just a great great benefit to you in your job as a teacher to have this opportunity.
Yeah. And another tool that we can offer.
Yep. So moving on, Sharon, to we've just have our little chatty ramble. We went on a recent trip to Auburn. We stayed in Auburn, which is north of Adelaide, and then
in the Clare Valley.
And then we had a little drive out to a small town called Blythe, which only has about 300 people. A hotel, a few shops. Probably was a lot busier in the previous decades, but it's a bit quieter now. But still a lovely town. Yeah.
As is so for many rural Australian towns.
Yep.
Was actually a tremendous experience to be able to sit with, a new local.
Yep.
Hasn't been there for many years, but to be able to be in conversation for a couple of hours about the area and initiatives in the area, some of the history of it, but certainly being a country girl myself, knowing that the land sustains, it requires more land to sustain fewer people. So, the farming plots are much larger and less people running them. So towns are diminishing, a lot of those rural towns. And so, but some great things happening, particularly in that town, as there are in many small country towns around Australia, who are really building strong connections with their communities and providing wonderful ways to connect as communities.
They've actually set up a foundation in the town to finance projects, and one of them was creating a cinema, which is we didn't get to go to that, but isn't that wonderful that a town has a small town like that has a cinema where people from other towns nearby, like Clare or Auburn or Lochiel, can all come and see some great films that are happening there.
Yes, because I think it is the only cinema for many miles, kilometres around.
Yeah. So, great visit there to Blythe, Blyth.
Yes. We may have some listeners from Blythe.
Yes. Or nearby.
Or nearby, yes.
Now, Sharon, going on to what's happening in schools this week.
Oh, so the last week has been a lot of in-school and with teacher time. So we've had our Be Fearless and Lead sessions again, and in fact it's the work that we did with the Be Fearless and Lead group of leaders and teachers that we've been working with now for over a year that has actually framed today's podcast. So we're going to extend some of that thinking that we did on that day and bring that to you in this podcast, which we've called High Impact Teaching Strategies.
High Impact Teaching Strategies and
the workshop model.
Well, and it's really combining it with the workshop model, but we've just called it the workshop model. Yep.
Yes, so, yes, working with the Be Fearless and Lead team, then working with Be Brave and Lead teachers, so that big group of teachers and leaders that we're working with across this year, and then working with some principals in their schools to do some of their planning for what we really referring to now all the time is that personalised learning, so that we're not just delivering professional learning to teachers based on what we think needs to happen, but really gathering information from teachers and knowing where they are and what they're needing to be able to inform what's needed next for everybody. So it's very differentiated. It's not just, okay, everybody now needs. So I love doing that planning with leaders and their teams, because teachers have had their voice in that planning.
Yeah. I was going to say that teachers are in the driving seat.
Yes.
And we're providing the tools, powerful tools, that they can take up, and we can show them how to use those tools. In fact, it's a really powerful tools we're talking about today.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's go on to our topic today, which is high impact teaching strategies and the workshop model. Sharon, what's the teaching struggle here?
So whenever we're working with teachers and leaders, we're always working towards the best outcomes for all our literacy learners. We're always keeping that in the forefront of our mind, eyes on the learners and thinking about what do they need. And so we're always considering what will enable highly effective outcomes. So that's what we're always driving down, we're always chasing. So that drives us back to consider, if we want, what can we do to enable highly effective outcomes? Then we can consider, well, what are the high impact strategies, the high impact teaching strategies that many of us are working with? So actually I'll talk more about that in a moment, about those high impact strategies and construct where that comes from. But we really want to think about, what are the most high impact teaching strategies we can employ to enable high impact for every child every day, so that they're not just, I have a high impact strategy that I can use one day, and when do I fit that in again? Where do I, how do I integrate that into
your teaching?
My teaching.
Yeah.
So today we're going to look at these high impact teaching strategies in relation to our English block or our literacy learning, and how, through considering them in the framework of a workshop model, how we can actually have these high impact teaching strategies at play every day for every child.
And I'm guessing the workshop model enables those high impact strategies to happen every day?
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
And so if I can just come back to a little bit of context to that, the high impact strategies, or the high impact teaching strategies, I'm doing you now,
Yeah.
where I keep missing out the teaching, sometimes referred to as HITS, so high impact teaching strategies. In short, that acronym would be HITS.
Okay.
That even come out? I feel like that just came out as ITS.
Yeah.
HITS.
Good.
Great.
Yeah, that's better.
And so in Victoria and in South Australia, I'm not sure about other states of Australia.
People can let us know. Yep.
Yes, it'd be great to know. But for South Australia and Victoria, the high impact teaching strategies are actually part of our education department initiatives. And so in both states, we'll find documents, and we'll link to the show notes to those documents. So if you're not in Victoria or South Australia, or even if you are and you haven't had a look at them, you can have a bit of a delve into what are defined as these high impact teaching strategies, which are actually 10 instructional practices that reliably increase student learning. So they come from the findings of tens of thousands of studies of what's worked in classrooms across Australia and the world. So experts such as John Hattie and Robert Marzano have synthesised these studies and then ranked hundreds of teaching strategies by the contribution that they make to student learning. So that's where this 10 come from, these 10 instructional practices.
So they're pretty
synthesised from all of that, from all of these studies. Then they've been ranked, but it's because they reliably increase student learning when they're applied. So I think you were going to say, so we can be...
Well, I'm going to say they're pretty rock solid. If you get these going in your classroom, you can be pretty well guaranteed that there's going to be, well, great learning going on.
Yeah, so that they should, or that they will, increase student learning.
Yep.
And of course, that's what... we all want to know that the things that we are doing, there is not one teacher on this planet that I know who doesn't work so hard at thinking about what is best for their students and how can they improve and enable good, strong learning.
And we so respect teachers as professionals in making such wise choices. We have got so many great educators in Australia, very, very wise educators.
Yes.
Yep.
And so I'm hoping today is an honouring of you all as like authentic teachers and leaders, who are pondering and looking for confirmation and are considering about how powerful your professional knowledge of what readers and writers need to grow and how that's playing out in your classroom. So I have created, as part of this work, a document. It's a draft. It's draft stages of it, where I've tried to marry the high impact teaching strategies and how they work within a workshop model.
If it's a draft, it'd be great to get feedback on it, and we can
absolutely
get ideas from it.
And if you're interested in having a look at that and looking at it whilst you're even listening to this podcast, you might want to pause now. You'll be able to download it, or you can download it. It's
from the Teach Civic site.
And it'll be linked into the show notes so that you'll be able to just go straight there to find this draft article or draft document that I've created. So it's what I'm calling my best effort at this point. So it would be nice for people, if there's feedback, and it may or may not be useful to people, but I think it's a good way to just bring this idea of when we look at the workshop model, we can see how these high impact teaching strategies are actually an integral part to the model. So I think the model is one way of actually making sense of how all of these high impact strategies can come into children's lives every day.
Yep. And if people are new to using the workshop model, it might be feedback might be long term. You might be trying this out and seeing how these impact strategies work within that workshop model, and give us feedback over the longer term. Yeah. Or
it might be that thinking about this today might give people an opportunity to think about, I have been trying to incorporate some of those high impact teaching strategies into my teaching. The workshop model may be something that may frame it for you to go, okay, that's how they can work.
Yep.
But we're not saying these can't work outside of a workshop model.
No.
We're just making that connection between really the workshop model being it's how a highly effective lesson structure incorporates high-impact teaching strategies to provide every child with the learning opportunities they need every day to be highly effective readers and writers. So let's have a look, because we haven't even talked about what the 10 high-impact teaching strategies are.
Okay.
And so that's where in the show notes too will be the link to those to the document that looks at the 10, and it gives a little overview and what the key elements are of each of these 10 high-impact teaching strategies. So together there'll be some nice things to look at, and I think quite possibly, this could be for a learning community or for a staff to consider some of these things and how they live together.
Great staff meeting topic.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So 10 high-impact teaching strategies are, and I'm just going to list them off to begin with: setting goals. So number 1, setting goals. Number 2, structuring lessons. Number 3, explicit teaching. Number 4, worked examples. Number 5, collaborative learning. Number 6, multiple exposures. Number 7, questioning. Number 8, feedback. Number 9, metacognitive strategies. And number 10, differentiated teaching. So that's the list of the 10 as they're ranked as those high impact teaching strategies. So now to think about those, of course, any teaching we're doing isn't just based on these strategies. It's based on, and this is what creates our profession. It's that deep knowledge that we then have, that deep curriculum knowledge that we have around reading and writing and the skills and strategies that are needed for that we know that we need to have eyes on and ears on as we're teaching our students. So that whole process of, the curriculum knowledge we have and what to look for, what to notice our readers and writers doing, they're critical parts of this. So all of that expertise this absolutely relies on. So high impact teaching strategies don't work without that credible knowledge and curriculum knowledge that you're bringing to this, and that fullness of the Australian curriculum. So that means then that it's all about implementing rich, authentic teaching tasks, and we talk about that as one of our timeless T's, those true tasks,
Yep.
that transformative teaching, and that the high impact teaching strategies rely on rich, authentic learning tasks and engaging students in the real work of the reader and the writer. That's the authentic learning tasks, are the true tasks.
Mm-hmm.
So for literacy, the reading, the writing.
Yep.
And that we're wanting students to have agency in that, to know what it is they're doing, what actions they're developing, what strategies they're using, and being aware of that. So I think for those of you that know the workshop model, I'm just explaining actually a whole lot of those things. But those high impact teaching strategies rely on that. So let's have a little, now for those of you that haven't got the document in front of you, I'm actually sort of going to have a bit of a talk through it. So if you have got it in front of you, it will probably be easier to follow along with what I'm saying. If you haven't got it, I'm going to try and make it as clear as I can. So we've talked about 10 high-impact teaching strategies.
Yep.
And then just reviewing and defining again the workshop model. Workshop model is generally made up of 3 parts. And what we can talk about here with these 3 parts is that they form a lesson structure.
Yes.
So number 2 of high impact strategies is structuring lessons.
Perfect.
And the workshop model gives us a highly effective lesson structure made up of 3 parts. 1, the mini lesson.
Yes.
That's where there's the explicit demonstration and explanation of what good readers and writers, what strategies and skills they employ and use.
And actions to take.
The second part of the lesson structure of the workshop model is the independent practice. And as independence is happening, there's also that opportunity for small, flexible focus groups for those for whom the mini lesson, they need a bit more guided practice from the mini lesson. So that gives everybody opportunity to practice either independently and for some students to have a little bit more guided practice before they move into independence. And then the third part of the lesson structure is the reflection or share. And this is whole class, mini lesson whole class, share, reflection, whole class, so that students have the opportunity then to reflect on what they practiced in their independent practice part, how effective that was, what they learnt, what they discovered. So there are the 3 parts: mini lesson, independent practice, share, reflection. So now I want to talk a little bit about which of the high impact teaching strategies can live within each part of that workshop model. Is that making sense?
Perfect sense, Sharon.
Great. Yep. I just always need to check in because I can sometimes get into a chatty ramble in my own head. And yes, keep asking questions or reminding me if I'm not being clear here, so, because no one out there can.
So we've got this structure, which is actually number 2 on the high impact teaching strategies. And we've got it as the workshop model, which is what we've been talking about in lots of podcasts. We've actually broken it up a bit. Sometimes we've spoken just about the mini lesson in one podcast. And the other 2 components, the independent practice and then the sharing, have come into lots of discussions that we've had. So what we're doing now, folks, is we're looking at each one of those 3 components of the workshop model and showing you that what high-impact strategies are covered within each one of those.
Yes, yeah, that's it. The mini lesson, remarkably, can actually have each of the 10 high-impact teaching strategies within that 5 to 10 minute mini lesson.
That is quite remarkable.
It is entirely
astonishing, really.
Yes, yeah. So what does that mean? So if we go through 1 to 10, so the first one, setting goals. The mini lesson is all about
setting goals.
Being clear. There is a clear learning intention for the mini lesson, which is the goal. And where have we got that goal from? We've got that because we've had our eyes and our ears on our readers and writers. And so we usually begin the mini lesson by saying what we've noticed. And that's where our goal has come from. So it's all very formative.
And our previous podcast to this one, we were talking about conferring.
Yes.
So that's perfect because what we've picked up in the conferring is now informing the mini lesson.
Yes.
As well as the curriculum. But
yeah. But yes, that deep knowledge of the curriculum, we know what we've got eyes and ears on.
Yep.
And so we have a clear learning intention, and that's the goal. We're setting the goal through that. So what I think I've talked about this before, but what we'll often say with the learning intention is we can make it, we can start it with good readers or good writers. That's the goal. What's the good reader or good writer goal for today? So in this mini lesson, what good reader or good writer strategy or skill am I about to demonstrate and explain?
And then what actions can they take?
And then what actions? So that's the setting goal, clear intentions. Structuring the lesson. The mini lesson is highly structured in that it is planned and it's intentional. Number 3, explicit teaching. That's what explicit teaching is. It's that demonstration and explanation in this time of that strategy or skill that the good reader or writer is about to learn. Number 4, worked examples. Now, worked examples demonstrates, so in the high impact teaching strategies, our worked examples in reading, our very best examples are the read alouds, the shared reading, so the enlarged text. It's the literature that we use that is the best examples for our students to see how we as a reader apply those strategies. So you don't have to collect, or you don't have to create an example to teach this. Literature is your example. Literature, the good literature, the high quality texts, the text that you have on the go, so the read aloud, the shared reading, the big books that you're using, or that enlarged text that you can bring to students, the fabulous informational texts that you can show how they work, they are your worked examples.
Had a lovely text the other day with a class, Sharon, where it was a journal of a boy who was on Captain Cook's ship, and he actually didn't keep the journal, but it was as if he did. But he was a real boy on the ship, and he...
so historical fiction.
Yep. So it was a great model for how to keep a journal. And then the children, in their own writing, did their own journals.
Yes. So there's the link to the writing now.
Yes.
So sometimes we think the worked example means, we have to create something using literature and reading like a writer.
Yep.
Learning how to read like a writer and notice how that text works. That's where literature and text is so powerful as the example. That doesn't diminish that we would then create, sometimes we are modelling the writing and how that works. And so if we're using literature as the example, what might that look like when I might model part of the process by writing text myself. So I'm not taking away from, it's not taking away from that I, can model that writing, but our very best examples for readers and writers come from authentic and rich text that we can use with students.
Well, that's perfect. That worked examples is easily covered within the mini lesson.
Yes.
Through using read aloud and
and authentic text.
Authentic text, yeah.
Number 5, collaborative learning. Now, the mini lesson as a whole class is by its very nature of being together as a class.
There's one of our timeless T's, together.
Together.
Yep.
Collaborative learning, we are now together learning. Yes, we can go off and try some of these things with a partner or with a small group, but just by the fact that in this mini lesson we are together with everybody having entry points and being able to offer their ways of how it's working for them, how they're using that strategy, how they're applying that skill, what they've discovered as we're doing this. So that collaboration in that way through the demonstration, so that explicit demonstrating and explaining, it's not just the teacher doing that demonstrating and explaining, it's students are doing that with you. They are collaborating with you on this now. So they are getting to practice it and they are getting to talk that out, share that out. Mini lesson isn't just teacher only.
No, it's not a one-way street.
I like that.
It is lots of back and forth in the mini lesson.
Yeah.
Lots of back and forth.
Yes.
It's not just in the sharing time that happens. It happens in the mini lesson.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
In a collaborative way.
Yes.
Yep.
And the mini lesson absolutely models for students the collaborative nature of this, so that if they are to go off to work collaboratively in a small, in a pair or in a group, so we're writing something, it is much clearer what it is that they are all doing as part of that process. Yep. So to collaborate highly effectively in that way, because it's clear goals, it's been explicitly taught, and this is all, I'm up to number 5 out of 10, and we're talking about a 5 to 10 minute mini lesson here.
It's all happening.
And Sarah at Mount Barker South, who modelled her mini lessons to 11 other teachers in her school, modelled a series of mini lessons. Everyone in that school can absolutely attest to Sarah having all of these things in those 5 to 10 minute mini lessons.
Fantastic.
Multiple exposures. Mini lessons are the perfect place for multiple exposures, because the skill or strategy that I'm demonstrating, modelling, explicitly teaching on one day, I am being exposed to that more than once in that mini lesson. Then I'm trying it out and I'm reflecting on it, but it's not a one-off, one-day mini lesson. That skill, those strategies, they're coming up again. So the next day or the next few days, we're still going with that. We aren't just, tick, covered. We're going deeper with it. We're going into better understanding.
And through your conferring, you'll be getting to know how long to keep those mini lessons that are similar going, won't you?
Yep. Number 7 is questioning. When students have the opportunity right there in the mini lesson to ask questions about, for clarification, for how does this work? Is this how it works? I did this. Is that right? All of that can happen because it's opening up opportunities right there and then, because it isn't just happening to them. It's not a one-way street. I'm also trying it. So I've already got questions that I can be asking, which are critical for me as teacher, knowing who will I hold a little bit longer after this mini lesson, who isn't yet ready to go.
Yep.
So that opportunity for students to question, to clarify, and for us to quickly address that and to go, okay, I can see all of those that are ready, off you go. I'm going to hold you and you, because we just need a bit more to work on that. So questioning, comes up organically in that kind of, if we're saying it's not a one-way street.
Yeah. Yep.
Number 8, feedback. So even in the mini lesson right now, we've already talked about feedback. I can see you've got it. Those of you that have got it, off you go. I know that you are ready to move with that. But then, because it's not just a to process in the mini lesson, it's not just happening to them, they are withing. They have the opportunity to do this with you, that they're already getting feedback about how effectively it's working for them, because the goal is clear, the intention has been clear, it's been explicitly explained and demonstrated. So I know, so my success criteria, if we use that visible learning language, I know what it is to be successful. So I can test, I can check for myself whether I'm being successful or not. So, in any, I suppose the term is, any feedback that a teacher gives at that time is letting everybody know very quickly and very easily whether they've got it or not. Number 9, metacognitive strategies. So once again, in this time, students are already able to be doing the thinking that they need. That's what the metacognitive strategies are, knowing the thinking that they're doing, being aware of that thinking. They're already employing these to check on themselves before they go off to do the independent work.
And I'm guessing the teachers modelling that thinking in a think aloud with a book that they're reading in a read aloud, or in shared reading or shared writing.
Yeah.
So the teacher's actually mentally talking about their thinking and what they're doing as they're reading and as they're writing. And so the children are picking up on that and then able to use that in their own reading and writing.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, exactly. And then differentiated teaching, number 10. I've already differentiated by bringing to the students what they need, what I've noticed that they need.
Through your conferring?
Through my conferring, through my small group work, through listening, my observations, through the roving conferences, through the share and reflection from the day before.
Yeah.
All of this is informing me about what am I bringing into this mini lesson, ensuring that everybody has an entry point, because that's differentiated. It's the strategy or the skill that I'm teaching,
that they're all needing,
and that we know that they need more of to read and create more complex text and be more effective at these things. I need to have my entry point. So my differentiation is there's an entry point for everybody, but no ceiling. No ceiling. So that every child, I can be assured that they're in. Some students are going to need more support than others, and that's my second part of my lesson structure here. That independent practice and that small focus group, flexible focus group, I'm going to hold those who need some more. But everyone is working towards the same, to become more effective, more skilled, more strategic, more knowledgeable, have better understanding of the same good reader, good writer processes. So that's how the mini lesson gets all 10 in.
Ticks all boxes.
Ticks all boxes. And everyone's probably lying on the floor now going, head spinning, going, oh my goodness, but it works. We can get all of those things there. And what just then, I'm going to say blows my mind then, is that every day, if I'm working with that kind of lesson structure, that means every child every day is getting those high impact teaching strategies.
Yep, because they're all together there in that mini lesson.
Yes, yeah. So then independent practice. Well, let's say, what fits in, during that independent practice time, what our students are getting, I'm not discounting that there's certainly goals, they're working on goals.
Yep.
Some of them are setting their own goals.
Yep.
During that time because it's their individual goal. I haven't even listed that on the sheet. It's really all of these things all over again. But the practice time is letting me have the right goal to be working on because my teacher has given me an entry point into that. So I'm then working with the goal wherever I am with that. I'm getting multiple exposures of that. So if I'm writing, I'm not just getting one go at that, I'm getting lots of goes at it. If I'm reading, I'm not just getting one shot at it by reading this one sentence or this one little excerpt, I'm getting multiple goes at it. So every independent practice time of that, 20 to 30 minutes is giving me multiple opportunities to practice. So multiple exposures. During that time, because it's been modelled in a mini lesson, I'm able to question and answer for myself. I'm able to question, did that work? Hang on, what was it that I was shown? This whole question, this whole thinking process absolutely kicks in because I've seen it, I've actually tried it with the teacher, and now I can keep going with that in that independent time.
In your own text you're reading or writing.
Yes. Metacognitive strategies, this is absolutely where they're thriving because I'm being given the opportunity to absolutely understand my own thinking processes here because I've been shown the thinking processes of good readers, good writers, thinking processes and actions and behaviours.
So you've seen those in the mini lesson and now you've got the chance to use those in your independent practice time.
Now, of course, in this opportunity during that independent practice time to work with some students who I can see need some more support from my mini lesson, then my differentiated teaching extends. So I can give a little bit. I don't have to come up with a whole new activity for them. I don't have to come up with a whole new task. Let's go. I might have to, maybe I realise that I didn't give them the right entry point in the mini lesson, but right now, how do I adjust that? But to still work with the same thing. Like if that's what's identified, I don't want to jump now to something completely different.
No.
I want to try and work with what we're all working towards here. If I've intentionally chosen this as what I've noticed they're needing, then let me work with that. Let me not, okay, you had that mini lesson, now I'm going to work on something completely different with you because last week you didn't get this, or when I checked this, we want a thread. We want the thread to continue through so that the differentiated teaching is true to that goal that we've set.
Plus it's meaningful.
It's meaningful.
Yep.
Yeah. Of course, all of our conferring, and you've already talked about this, that conferring that we're doing, whether it's roving or one-on-one, that's also the prime time to give feedback on how things are, how we're progressing with that strategy. So eyes on, ears on, what students are doing. If they're writing, I can see it on the page and I'm giving them feedback, timely feedback, on the spot feedback.
And-
if they're reading on the spot, I can only give meaningful feedback whilst students are engaged in the process. So the feedback is happening as they're reading or as they're writing,
Yep.
so that then that feedback has an impact. It means that right there and then, I can modify, I can keep reading or writing and modify what I do right now.
Yep.
And try that a bit more. So I can tweak this a little bit, or I can extend it a little bit, or I can focus it a little bit, or I can deepen the understanding of how and why we use this strategy or this skill a little bit, so that it's all that, that looping of feedback for growth, feedback, trying it out, getting more precise and better at what good readers and writers are doing.
And you've also got differentiated teaching there, Sharon, so that's really catering for when you are conferring with children or even a quick roving conference, you can be differentiating.
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking there's some explicit teaching going in there too.
There is absolutely explicit teaching happening during that. On my sheet,
We'll have to modify it a bit.
yes, the one we're looking at the moment is not going to be the one you're looking at if you've downloaded the sheet, because as I said before, this was sort of like my best go at it, and the Be Fearless and Lead people have got the draft that I'm sitting with at the moment. But yes, you are absolutely right. There's kind of two parts to. There's the parts about what the small group and the conferring time afford us, and there are high impact teaching strategies that go with those. And then there's that independent practice. There's some high impact teaching strategies that are playing out even whilst we're practicing independently.
Yep. And I would even add collaborative learning within that independent practice time, because there will be some children working together on something.
Like?
When they work together on something.
Give me an example. So if you're talking about if they're writing together or and they may be editing together, or they may be
so collaborative learning is within there.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes. And in the reading, they may be doing some partner reading at that time, or they may be involved in, some of our older students may be involved, a group may be in a literature club or a book club, and so they are talking and thinking about text during that time. So yes, there are absolutely collaborative efforts, or collaborative learning opportunities that are that can happen in that time.
So we'll move on to the third part of the workshop
third
model.
part, that reflect, share, which is back to whole class, just coming together again. And one or more of these things might be happening, where a teacher might be drawing on some of the things that were noticed during that independent or small group time that they want to share back to the whole class about strategy use or what was noticed students doing, that can take everybody that little bit further. So reflecting and sharing might be teacher doing some of that sharing back to the whole class and reflecting on what's happened, or it might be students turning and telling how they used the strategy today, what they were trying to do as a writer today, and how that went. how they were using the strategy as a reader and what that helped them to do, how that's improved them, what understanding they've gained from that, etc. Or it may be sometimes individual students coming up to share. Teacher may say, oh, Phil, I'd like you to come up, and Sarah, I'd like you to come up, and because I want you to come and share some specific things that I saw happening that I know are going to be good for everybody to hear and that can make a point. So once again, that share and reflect can draw on a whole lot of those high-impact teaching strategies in that time where I might be referring to goals and I may in fact be setting some new goals because of today already. So goal setting and where might I didn't talk about this when we talked about the mini lesson, but my goals, these good reader, good writer strategies, goals that we've got, I'm anchoring those on a chart. It's a class-made chart. It's not the one I've downloaded and photocopied. It's we're creating this. It's that intention. I've set the goal, as teacher, because I know what students need. In that reflect and share, we may, on our chart, actually find that we're setting another goal for tomorrow.
Yes, yep.
As in response to what's happened today.
So that anchor chart really has relevance for every part of the workshop model, the mini lesson, the independent time, the share. It's because it's there solidly up on the wall or wherever it is, it's what we can all refer to, what we can add to in each part of that workshop model.
Yes, yeah. So it's really anchoring and making visible a whole lot of these things.
Yeah. Can I just also add, Sharon, that as people become more expert at implementing the workshop model, it becomes a little bit more fluid where a mini lesson can be at the start, but then a repeat of something during the lesson that's part of the mini lesson, just as the share can be not just always at the end, it can be partway within that independent time. So,
that's right. We're talking about 3 parts of structuring lessons, and you're absolutely right. They don't have to happen you can't have a share somewhere. I frequently, especially with writing, I frequently bring in shares partway through the process.
It's very powerful, isn't it?
Where I see somebody doing something where I can say, oh, everyone will benefit from this child sharing out because here's an example of this happening, or here's where they have taken that so much further than we'd done. So that's where we can see it's that high impact teaching strategy. A student can then be doing that through the share just by, they might be giving, it might be an example. So worked examples, well, if they're giving an example of something, that becomes the teaching strategy for others. And for those children who think, I don't want to share because someone's going to steal my idea, this model actually takes all of that out. It's, oh my goodness, yes, look how someone in our class has used that strategy. Wow, now I could use that in my way for doing that. So that's such a good point, Phil, that it isn't just a locked linear structure, but it's the elements are there for structuring a lesson, or it's a highly effective lesson structure with those elements playing out
in the ways they need to, according to your professional choices as a teacher.
Yes, and judgments and needs.
Yeah. Everything, behaviour, all the things that happen in a classroom.
Yeah. But having those elements and knowing the power of all of those workshop model elements being high impact teaching strategies, it's the elements that we can chase down.
Yep.
And feel like, we're not having to think each day, okay, how am I going to structure this so that all of these elements can, or one or two or three can be part of it. We can actually use this as a structure to incorporate, to readily and naturally and effectively incorporate the high-impact teaching strategies into the everyday.
So people who have been following along with all our podcasts, we started with our timeless T's.
Yes.
Which are there I think it's in the second podcast.
Yes.
And then we worked through...
And the timeless T's being together, time. And so once again, and I don't know that we've actually done this against a workshop model.
No, that's probably another podcast.
Yeah. But
and then I think it's developing them into all three, the high-impact strategies, the workshop model and the timeless T's, because they all are connected.
Yes.
And folks, if you've got these working in the background, you've got some powerful teaching going on.
Yes. And then we could add Brian Camborne's Conditions for Learning.
Fantastic.
Yes.
And Garth Boomer.
But they are, these are the underpinnings, aren't they? They are the foundations for us to structure things and to know what things give us entry points for children for highly effective actions. I'm talking specifically literacy, but these highly effective reading, writing actions, thinking actions.
Wonderful guide, especially for someone starting off in teaching, a wonderful guide to be behind your teaching and what you're doing.
Yes.
Okay, so that's probably winds up our topic today, Sharon.
Yes,
I'm sure in future podcasts we're going to bring in, as we do the timeless T's, we're going to bring in high impact strategies in. We're going to bring all those things in on conversations as we talk, because they are so meaningful and powerful.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a great wrap up for today.
I can see I'm getting the chop.
No, not really.
No, yes.
So what's a good tool that you've been using, Sharon, recently?
Oh, do you know, I feel like I may have said this more than once recently, but, in the last week, we've been on big book hunts in schools, and just getting big books back into the classrooms again, the difference that we're seeing in especially our reception, year 1 classes, getting them back with eyes on that big text, on that enlarged text, really getting them understanding what they're doing as a reader in that fullness, at word level and phrase level and text, sentence level. And
you're doing it together.
And doing it together and just creating that body of known texts that these, especially our early readers, can use for their independent reading. I'm going to mention a reception class that we're working with. They just cannot get their hands on those big books quick enough at any time of the day, and to be sitting in a little group, to be joining in together, as well as noticing, different people, different children noticing different things, practicing different things. I'm hearing them recite things just at different points during the day. So this engagement with the text, these big books, just providing so many opportunities for especially our young students to participate and behave like effective readers, because they're seeing it modelled, they're joining in with it, and they are revisiting it. They've got familiar text to go back and work with. So
great tool.
Great tool.
For the classroom.
And I know I said it last time, but, we will do a podcast just on the power of shared reading. A lot of people, I've heard people use the term shared reading as when I've got two children share, or a child and an adult reading with each other. That's sharing reading. But we want to talk about shared reading in the way that Don Holdaway constructed the importance of eyes on text and seeing what a good reader is doing as they work with that text and doing it together.
If you want another term for it, you could say shared enlarged text with all eyes on the text. That could be a way to, when there's some confusion, it might be a way of people describing it. Yep.
Yeah.
And question 3.
Yes.
What's a tantalising text that you've been using recently?
Well, I'm going to talk about 2 texts that I haven't been using but that have been shared with the 2 Be Brave and Lead groups. There were 2 wonderful texts that were shared. One was Kate was sharing the book, the class-made book her Year 7 class had created that just used, so they used the book, The Brilliant Book of Bugs by Jess French, as one of the models for how can we present, what text features and how can we structure our text to create really powerful informational text. These are stunning pieces. Did not take a photo. Kate will have to, I hope you're listening, Kate, you will need to post on the Teachers Toolkit Facebook examples of what they've done. Really extraordinary text that was created. Text where we just went like, that could be published. That was just so powerful, and using all of those, a lot of those text features that we were talking about in, reading like a writer, informational text. And that was the prompt for that. The other, I just absolutely have to share this too. So Catherine brought to Be Brave and Lead a whole lot of books that she had sourced. She went book shopping, spent much more than she was expecting to, looking for texts that she could bring in to help students understand mathematical concepts. Now, one book that she brought in was called The Rabbit Problem by Emily Gravett. It looks at the Fibonacci's rabbit problem, that where bunnies breed, at this specified rate. And the features of this book, that's the extraordinary piece about that. Apart from it looking at, the Fibonacci's formula, it's got all of these, so it's kind of set up like a wall calendar, but then it's got all of these features in it of, little letters and signs that are being made. It is a feast. It's an absolute feast of information, plus it's a story.
Amazing.
So these are, and I can still see the beam on Catherine's face, ear to ear. The book cost her more than any other book that she bought, but she said it is the book that this is the tantalising text. This is just so engaging. Everyone's going to want their eyes on it. Everyone's going to engage, and she's, her younger learners, everyone's going to engage in this in such powerful ways. And the absolute joy of it for her was I had not seen the book. So she had brought a book that was new for everybody in the room.
Oh,
and isn't that exciting?
That's wondrous.
When you've found the book that nobody else has had eyes on.
Yeah.
So, and that's the absolute wonder and joy of, sharing resources and sharing information. And Teachers Toolkit Facebook page, get sharing, some of the books that, people are really finding finding powerful.
And I usually pick up on these books in our MailChimp newsletter that goes out and highlight these, so they will be highlighted and the links on there too. I know teachers are very busy, so we don't want to...
No, I'm not wanting to put that pressure on anybody to say that they need to share, and we will absolutely be doing the sharing. But thank you, Catherine, for bringing us the rabbit problem.
Fantastic. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today on the podcast. Lots of gold there, Sharon, for people to reflect on and maybe use at a staff meeting. Some great stuff there. Thank you, everyone. Please join our Teachers Toolkit Facebook group if you haven't. Contact us through the Q Learning website if you need further support. Oh, and also we've got this wonderful online workshop coming up, Reading Like a Writer, on the 5th and 6th of July at 10 o'clock Adelaide time on both days. There'll be a link to that on our MailChimp newsletter, and also we've got it on the Facebook group as well. So please come to that. It's not on Eventbrite, it's on another platform, which I thought was a really great one because it's all to do with donating to worthwhile causes as well. So
Humanitics.
So hopefully that's going to be a platform that I think it will be one that we really stay with because it's got some really good intentions behind it. So, and please subscribe to our weekly newsletter if you have not already done so, because you'll get lots of information on those newsletters. Thank you to our co-host Sharon.
Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you for running it so well as you do. Keeping me focused.
Lots of great information there today. Teacher in another language, Walibu. There we go. Swahili. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and bye for now.
Have a great week, everyone. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. To make sure you don't miss any literacy learning tips and insights, please subscribe to our show on your favourite podcast player. At Q Learning, our literacy specialists draw on over 30 years of teaching and international consulting experience to deliver world-class learning solutions. We equip, empower and support teachers to become their authentic selves. To find out about upcoming webinars and about how Q can help you and your school, visit qlearning.com.au. And you can get even more amazing teaching resources right now at teachific.com.au. Stay tuned.